Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Tunero Forever, and we have had an action-packed week, and it's not even the end of the week yet. We still have tomorrow's game against Tijuana, and we had the beginning of the season. We had even more transfer rumors circling than headlines, and a surprising result during the week as well. So we're going to talk about that and more as the show goes on. First, we're going to talk about, you know, how San Luis kicked off the season. Like we said, this is not going to be an easy way to start off the season. First game of the year and the season. Tigres at home, packed stadium. And I do want to point out, I was watching the American broadcast, by the way. It's very strange. It's very odd. A very peculiar thing to point out, but I suppose we are now on Telemundo, is the home network of San Luis. So I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing economically for San Luis. I don't know how much they're paying for the TV rights here in the States, but as someone who's been a fan for over 2 decades here in the States, I don't believe they've ever had a contract with anyone other than Univision. They've never been on Azteca. They've never been on Telemundo. They've always been on like Galavisión, Telefutura, Unimas, Univision, things like that. But anyway, they get the game started off, packed stadium, everyone ready to go. Majority San Luis fans, thankfully. And San Luis starts off with the high pressure. They're pulling no punches here. They're going straight for the heart. They go, few very high pressure game for San Luis. They took control of the game in the first half, and especially a standout performance by the man making his debut, Duarte, which Nico Duarte. He had a tremendous game, or at least the first half. We'll go over the second half, but yeah, he created some dangerous occasions. He was a headache for Tigres in the first half. And he went ahead, showed a lot of creativity, and basically he had a dangerous pass to Joao around the 18th minute mark, which goes wide. And the game starts to kind of settle down a little bit around the 24th minute mark. Kind of evens out, kind of starts to get a little bit boring. And this is kind of where we start to see, we kind of start to get an idea of who Duarte is. He kind of loses his head a bit, and he starts to get an attitude, gets aggressive, gets a yellow card in the 32nd minute. But he does keep attacking, and he actually gets close with a really dangerous header that hits the crossbar in the 32nd or the 39th minute, just before the end of the half. But all in all, San Luis showing a lot of aggressive behavior. They're absolutely being the aggressor, had the majority of possession. Tigres very poor performance, in my opinion, in the first half. San Luis especially dangerous on the right wing. Very dangerous. I gotta say, this is something that we'll talk about on and on as well. This does come into play when we talk about the second game and the second half as well. This is going to be a pretty big. Factor going forward, and I feel like it's laying the groundwork for the rest of the season as well. This is going to be what defines the season, that right wing, especially at the right back position. This is going to be what's it. I don't think it's going to be center back, which I believe was I think it was solid, save for a few hiccups there by Bamboo. But I think it's serviceable, and I think it's a step up from last season. So we'll definitely see what goes on from there. And an interesting note, so they head into the half, and as they come back, commentary makes an interesting point. They say that the roster of San Luis has the second most Mexicans in Liga MX. Of course, only behind Chivas. 73% of the roster is actually Mexican. Very interesting. Actually, I think this is a very, very interesting, very good thing. Very good for the market value of the roster, actually. But anyway, things get started. 48th minute. There's a dangerous cross, a low cross. It kind of deflects off of Bamboo, who can't clear it all the way. It heads towards the left side of the field. And Marcelo Flores is completely open. He's got a lot of room to work with. And he takes advantage. He's able to basically strike that past Andy Sanchez without any issue. A powerful shot, by the way, off the crossbar into the and across the goal line. So that shook up the game a lot, and that changed the momentum. That was an instant game changer right out of the locker room, and that's just something we can't have happen, you know. Just something that, you know, we've had trouble with since last season, so definitely not what we wanted to start off. And of course, those first 20 minutes were very, very frustrating to watch. Tigres pulls back their lines. San Luis without any creativity whatsoever. A lot of very frustrating. Just they tried to go for the first touch sort of game that they were trying to work on the right wing. And it just was not going to work out. Tigres was locked in, 11 players behind the half line, behind the half line field. It was just somebody's had nothing going for them. Just a disaster. But of course, things changed a little bit. At the 63rd minute, we get the debut of Fidel Barajas, the Mexican-American. And, of course, we get a corner kick at the 76th minute, or 74th minute, rather. And there's a deflection from a header, and Joao Pedro is able to capitalize. And you get that pass Nahuel, and he ties that up at 1. And really, San Luis, at this point, didn't deserve it. I mean, they got lucky there. But then again, San Luis didn't, Tigres really didn't do much either. And only 2 minutes after this, a very similar buildup to the first goal by Marcelo Flores. And once again, it's scored by Marcelo Flores. And this is after Gignac is subbed in just a few minutes prior. And there's a cross from the right field. From Linus, and there's a backheel pass, and first touch backheel pass by Gignac, and it lands right at in front of Marcelo Flores, who simply pushes it. First touch shot, and it goes past Andy Sanchez, and just like that, Tigres are right ahead in the game. Flores is subbed in a little bit later as well. But very little changes, tight possession. San Luis does little to nothing to close out the game. In fact, I would say Tigres probably had the majority of possession during the end of the game. But my final analysis of that game, kind of more even than you might think if you didn't watch the game. But, you know, guys like Andy Sanchez average, it's not much he could have done about some of those shots. And, Bamboo, at some points, he looked very inattentive. Like, he wasn't even paying attention sometimes. There was an instant, I believe in the second half, where they simply, he's arguing with the ref on the sideline and about a ball that goes out of bounds, and Tigres simply makes an inbounds pass right over the head of Bamboo, and it makes a dangerous occasion for Tigres. So, Bamboo really has to get his head in the game. I think he has the capacity to turn things around, but so far we haven't seen any like world class uh sort of play from him. Very physical, you know, but nothing to write home about so far. Um, Duarte, I thought I really like what I saw from Duarte in those first few minutes in the first half. He's going to be dangerous. He's going to be that guy that he's got that San Luis sort of spirit, that hustle, that physicality that San Luis has been known for. Since they returned to first division. In Galdames, I feel he had a very average game. Neither here nor there. You know, I think David Garcia, he looked very promising. And this is a young prospect that we're really going to have a good look at. Physically impressive. Always ready. Always ready or always in a spot to score. Always can cross very well. Good speed, good physicality. Good size with him. I think this is someone that can make a big difference. And not only that, I think we can make some good bank off of this guy. Joao, not his best game, but you know, he scored the one that he should. But the one I want to talk about most, and I said I wanted to get back to the discussion about the right wing. Roman Torres, who was playing as a right back. So those 2 goals by Marcelo Flores, these 2 goals were actually, I guess, indirectly left open by Roman Torres. He was out of position. He was headed more towards like a cornerback or a center back rather than a right back, leaving a huge gap between him and Marcelo Flores. And each time Marcelo Flores was able to capitalize and score. And after that, you're thinking, you know, what are we going to do? Because Roman Torres, I feel like he was dangerous, you know, on the attack. He's dangerous. But, you know, to be caught like that, you know, out of position like that defensively, time and time again, and it cost them the game, you know, you're looking at him and you're probably thinking this guy should not touch the pitch ever again, you know. Well, maybe not that bad, but, you know, it was bad. And these are costly mistakes at a high level of play against a very tough opponent. When, you know, you have all the momentum in the world and to cost a game like that at home, when, let's face it, the results at home, just like I said before, they haven't paid any dividends. But people are starting to lose faith. And you got to pick up these wins. And of course, you know, they leave in a half-empty stadium and boos and some Tita's chants. Not the right way to go out, but you really start to worry there. And I was wondering, how is Abascal going to handle this? And we find out in the second game. That was a big question for me. And this is the starting lineup. And this is what he does. Of course, we get Joao Pedro starting 9. Sarlamon starting at a left, on the left midfield. We get David Garcia again on the right midfield. Perez Buquet sort of as like an attacking midfielder. Oscar Macias as defensive mid. Juan Manuel Sanabria as a left wing. Roman Torres on the right. And we get three center backs for this one. So we get Edu Aguila, who I said before, this guy is someone to look for. You know, we got to hold on to him. Benjamin Galindo, and Bamboo, of course. So, yeah. The first half, it starts off a very early attempt from America, nearly where a Buffalo shoots a shot that nearly goes in, hits the post. And already we're saying, oh my goodness, this is not going to be good. This is going to be horrible. And of course, we saw a lot of San Maximin from America, where he's just running roughshod on his team on San Luis, which basically is running with three center backs and two right wingers, or two wingers on each side. So almost like a line of five, but um, more offensively focused, I'd say. Uh, but yeah, he's getting away with a lot of stuff. He's running through them. He's slicing and dicing his way through, but his finishing, um, not quite to the level I'm sure Americanistas would like to be. Um, and of course we get a shot by Edu Aguilar from outside the box around the 10th minute, and it's easily blocked. Um, and then of course, at the big controversy, the 20th minute, um, we get Juan Manuel Sanabria, who gets a wide open pass. He's making a run for the goal. He's got the one-on-one against the goalie. And of course, right behind him, we got a familiar face. We got Ramon Juarez, who was at San Luis. We remember him for, pretty average, I would say. And we see the slightest of touches where like they do like the whole like tech, the whole like specialized zoom ins with the effects, and they show a very slight touch by Ramon Juarez against Sanabria inside the box, who was basically going to be one-on-one against Malagón before that happened. Of course, a lot of controversy there because people were saying he didn't even touch him, or what. Like, even if he did touch him, it was a major flop. And the majority of commentary surprised me because, of course, it's Televisa, but they were saying, well, even the slightest of touches at that speed, it's going to knock you off balance. You're going to fall on your face. And there was, of course, one guy that was like, no, this is ridiculous. Didn't even touch him. He totally flopped or whatever. Or I'm sorry, this wasn't inside the box. It was outside the box. Ramon Juarez gets a direct red card. So he's shown the red. Everyone's, that's another controversy. Should it have been the red? Was it a flop? Should it have been a yellow against Sanabria? Should it have been a yellow against Ramon Juarez rather than a direct red? All sorts of things going on there. But anyway, after that, we get a direct free kick from Serge Lamonge, which is always intimidating. And he gets very close. It's just wide left of the goal. But Serge Lamonge is still looking like he's in match shape. He is still consistent with his gameplay. I don't see he's not missing a single step. And I loved what happened. Speaking of Salamonge, loved how they swapped between him, and they had like this sort of swapping going on where they had basically sometimes like Salamonge would trade spots with Perez Bouquet, where they would kind of swap between attacking mid and left midfield. And basically kind of swap because like they can both, especially Salamonge, can be extremely dangerous outside the box. Perez Bouquet can hold his own from the left midfield. And just kind of create this confusion in the America defense, but a lot of rotation going on between those two, and I really, really like that. But more importantly, what I really liked, going back to Roman Torres, Abascal is playing to the strengths of these guys, because Roman Torres and Sanabria, from wing to wing, right to left, these guys were a pain for America during the entire match. So much of a headache. And going into halftime, I think by that point, San Luis was definitely, it still wasn't like San Luis was dominated, but you knew like going into halftime, they were going to cook up something. They had to cook up something. And it was just a matter of time because, we didn't see too much from America. We had like a shot from outside by Fidalgo, who, we're talking about a possible national team call up from, what we've been hearing for the last few months. Possible, he said himself he'd prefer to stay or get a call up from Spain, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Um, and of course we get like, Rodrigo Dorado was there as well. So we get the matchup against Rodrigo Dorado, one of Jardina's favorites, who, couldn't really lock down San Luis either in the midfield. So they come back in the second half. And then to start things off, we already get Roman Torres, who, with a cross from Sanabria, already, gets a shot on goal. It's blocked by Malagon. And just a few minutes later, I mean, it was coming. It was a matter of time. Sanabria gets a header in with a cross from Roman Torres. A beautiful cross, by the way. Two guys that I think excel amazingly offensively. Great crossers. Sanabria, a speedster through and through. These two can be a headache for any team in the league. And I like the 3 CBs as well and a DM in the back just to cover your bases because, San Luis, as far as like covering their bases, in transition back on defense, they're very prone to get hurt in transition in the counterattack. So very well handled by Abascal. I have to give him credit, and I've talked a lot of trash about Abascal, but he's earned himself some breathing room here, and and we get a foul by Dorado later, a few minutes forward, showing a little bit of frustration there. And of course, we get another shot. We get one of the strangest calls. You're not going to see goals like this every other day, but basically the ball falls in front of the feet of João Pedro inside the box, and he's got his back against the goal. So he does the old, he puts his ball on a foot, passes it behind him to himself, and then, gives it the lightest of taps, facing the goal, and it makes its way past Malagon towards the left. And if you haven't seen that goal, please look it up. It's something to really look. It's kind of funny to see in motion. Very slow, very dramatic. And, he's in disbelief. They get the 2-0 win. After that, not much goes on from there. America showered in booze to end the match. People were not happy. People showed up in the rain to watch this. A lot of people asking for Santiago Baños to leave. They don't like the signings, including Dorado, by the way. And even some people asking for Jardina's head as well. I think that's a little bit extreme, but this is America we're talking about, so it's a totally different ballgame over there. But let's put San Luis in the headlines, makes them somewhat relevant again. A great win, by the way. We found out a lot about this club in this game. A big asterisk because there was a red card. But you got to win these types of games with that kind of advantage, and they did. So I'll give them all the credit in the world. And they got the clean sheet. So not something we see too often as San Luis fans. So that's great. So another tough one coming up against Tijuana. who has had a great start to the season. Coming off a win against hated rival Querétaro. So things are looking up here with this win. Abascal haters, of course. We're looking at another few weeks of Abascal just based off of this win alone. Making headlines, seething Americanistas everywhere. So yeah, this is a solid win, very solid win. He did what he had to do. And speaking of transfers, we have more speculation to do. And I know the transfer window doesn't until like the beginning of February, I believe. So far, we have another incoming transfer, Lucas Esteves Souza, coming in from Grêmio, of all places. So Souza, I'm going to read off his trajectory here. He's been at Palmeiras, Colorado Rapids, Fortaleza, Atlético Goianiense, Vitória, and Grêmio. And it looks like he's had many appearances on each of these clubs, except save for Fortaleza. He was on loan, but then he went to Goianiense. So it's like he's had consistent playing time, it looks like. And he's a left back. So it kind of leaves you wondering. It leads me to my next talking point here, because one of the things that were brought up during that match against America was Sanabria, where there was a deal turned down for his transfer to America. And it kind of makes you wonder, is Sanabria on the way out and is Esteves his replacement? And what's the profit here if that's the case? And if not, is Esteves going to be running the bench? Are they going to be playing two different roles on the left wing? Is this a more defensive-oriented sort of Esteves guy rather than an offensive-oriented Sanabria? A lot of speculation to go on there, but even more speculation to be made because, according to another article on Yardbarker, never heard of it, but it's been said on other media outlets as well, João Pedro had an incoming offer from Pisa, Serie A, back in Italy. And of course he has Brazilian and Italian citizenship. So, and he's had his, he's had his time in Italy as well. Rather successful, and through Europe, he's been a proven striker over there as well. And he doesn't get into specifics, but this was interesting. So it says here that he himself actually confirmed that Pisa was ready to pay the actual release clause for San Luis, totaling $3.5 million. Not chump change, by the way. And he had a medical plan for Sunday. Everything was going on. And of course, he basically said that the proposal was ready to go, but he himself rejected it for a personal reason. And he said he wanted to thank Pisa and the staff and people making the negotiations, but he said that he was happy there, where he's at. And that his mind is here and is where it'll remain. But, that's great. It tells you a lot, because that's very telling of what that means for future transfers from Europe. Like, this is a good destination for, like second, third tier European players who are out of form or need to regain form, things like that. So we have great transfers from Europe during the past years. And, but also, what plays into that is Pisa, very much in danger of relegation at that point. I believe second least amount of goals scored in Serie A at this moment. and currently in 17th place. So relegation looming, not a very good selling point either, but the pay I'm sure would be very, very nice, very comforting, but tells you a lot about Sunway so far. Financially stable, I believe, which isn't something you would see, with past franchises that we've had. But that about wraps everything up for Sunway. Some very, very, very action-packed week so far. So thank you for joining me today, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.